This is Marnie Nicholas again, and this is the second video in the Scribe Dragon demo. Now, if you're already familiar with how to use Dragon Naturally Speaking, you can probably skip over this video. If not, though, you should definitely watch it because the way I've been using Scribe is to integrate it with Dragon templates, and you need to be familiar with the navigation of Dragon Naturally Speaking in order to do that the right way. So when you first download Dragon onto your computer, it will run you automatically through a setup, and make sure you complete that. Then you'll be left with this toolbar across the top of your screen. Over here is your little microphone indicator, and when you turn it on, you'll see it turn to green. Now on this side you have a couple of buttons that you should be familiar with. The profile button you shouldn't need to use too much. If you're the only user on your computer, you'll probably have the only user file on here. This tools bar is going to be the most important. So let's start over there. So if I click there, I'm going to hit this and open up a dictation box just to show you how the dictation works. This just opens up a dictation box and you can practice dictating over here. So if you turn on your microphone by pressing the plus key on your keyboard, you will see that the light turns on your microphone, and the bar up here indicates that it's capturing what you're seeing, what you're speaking rather. And then if you look in the dictation box, you'll see things being transcribed. So I'll delete that. And turn off the microphone so that it stops transcribing what I'm saying now. What you'll really be using for the most part are the commands. So if you scroll down here to Command Browser, it will pull open a dialog box. Now Dragon comes preloaded with certain commands. So you'll see if you click on this, if you were to say Dragon Full Exam into a document, this entire thing over here would disappear. So your command name being said leads to the content appearing. So for example, I'll open up a dictation box and I'm going to turn on my mic and say Dragon Full Exam. Dragon Full Exam. And you'll see, like magic, that entire thing disappears. Appears. So you'll see how great that can be. For example, if you're a surgeon and you have a boilerplate spiel that you give the patient about consenting to a procedure, you can make a command that says perhaps Dragon consent form, and your entire spiel will show up in the patient's chart note. So that can be really handy. So going back to this, as I said, Dragon comes preloaded with certain things and with certain templates. However, I make my own because I have a certain way that I do my dictations and how I want my notes to look. So let's pull up one of the standard templates, and this is an admission one, and you'll see this comes up with the admission note, and it has this text in here, and then you'll see certain phrases that are bracketed. These are called variable fields. So if you're using variable fields and you're navigating through this document, what you can do is everything will be standard, and then you can adjust these fields to suit whatever you need it to say. And you can move from field to field by saying variable next field, or you can actually program your microphone buttons to move, which is what I do, and I'll show you that after. So if we again open a dialog box, Dragon Fellow Admit template. So you can see the templates come up and it's jumped to the first field, and you'll see that I will navigate now between the fields to fill them in. Jupiter Medical Center, Next field, chest pain. Next field, Smith. Next field, Jones. Next field, Smith. Next field, the patient presents with 3 days of chest pain. Next field, and so on and so forth. So you can see how easy it is to navigate. So how do you make your own templates? So you can see down here this user-defined box. These are all templates that I've created here. So I have a hypertension template, a normal exam, normal review of systems, and all of these things are used in my ECW dictations. So going back to how you make this, it's really very easy. You go back over to Tools, and you just scroll down to Add New Command. Right here, you'll make your command name. So let's say we're going to do a template for a normal physical exam. So we can make the command Dragon Physical Exam. Dragon Physical Exam. And then you go down to content and you just dictate exactly what content you want that command to fill in. And you can either type it or dictate it, but every time you have a variable field, you'll just hit this little variable field tab and it'll insert one. So for example, we could just do it something like this. HEENT : cardiovascular : abdominal exam : extremities : and then once you're done, you will just hit save, and you will see your command show up. So now if I pull that up in a dictation box just to show you how it works, Dragon Physical Exam, it pulls it up right there, and then I can navigate between the fields and use the command that I've made. So it's really very easy to make these commands. You can also make commands that are actually made up of keystrokes, and these can come in handy when using Scribe, and I'll show you in a further video how to do these. There's only a couple of those commands that I use, but they do really come in handy. The last thing I want to show you is how to program your power mic. So if you go back up to that tools bar and you pull down to options, it'll pull up this options box, and then you want to click where it says power mic, and you'll see it shows a picture of what your microphone looks like, and you can actually program these buttons to do whatever you want. So what I do is I have certain buttons set to actually advance fields. So this fast forward button over here, I have set to do next field. This custom write, I also have set to do next field also. So basically, instead of saying next field when you're moving between variables, you can just hit this button or whatever button you want to set it to just advance the cursor rather than actually having to say the words. Now, as you're using Dragon, you might come across words that it doesn't recognize. Perhaps it's a new drug that it's not familiar with, or the name of another physician that Dragon doesn't recognize. So what you can do in that case is you can just add a new word or phrase, and what you'll do is you will type the word in here, and if it's you can also write it out phonetically over here. So let's say it's the word, trying to think of a drug that it won't recognize. How about Invokana? So a new drug that Dragon might not recognize. So I will type in Invokana. it's pretty phonetic, so I won't write that. And then you want to add it, and you want to make sure this box over here where it says I want to train the pronunciation of this word or phrase. So I'll add it, and it'll bring up this to teach me how to train it in Vocana. Well, it should have worked, but let's assume it did for the sake of this video and running out of time. But that's how you would train new words. Also, as you're using the program and it misreads words, as you go back and correct it, Dragon actually learns from its mistakes. So the more you use Dragon, the better it actually gets at recognizing your voice and your phrasing. So again, if you're already familiar with Dragon, this should all be very basic stuff. If you're not familiar with Dragon, play around with it for a little while until you feel comfortable with it. And then with the next video, I'll work with some of the ways that I've integrated Scribe and Dragon to really work together to make the dictations very quick.